Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be my review of this knife, and this is the Sencut Cybrix. So this is a new knife from Sencut and another aluminum button lock. They've done several before and I have really enjoyed them, so I was definitely interested to check this knife out. Now, one thing that I wasn't sure of on this knife was going to be the handle, because as you can tell, this knife has a handle that is kind of abruptly curved downward. So it's a little different than most knives. A lot of knives have a handle that's pretty straight. There's going to be some finger scallops and stuff like that, but generally they have pretty straight handles. This is almost kind of like a pistol grip. It's not, necessarily that extreme, but it definitely has a downward curve. So I was interested to see how the ergonomics would be. But really, I was pleasantly surprised. It really feels good in my hand. I have relatively wide fingers and hands, and I can easily get a full 4-finger grip on this knife, as you can see. And my thumb lands really perfectly on that thumb ramp. So it kind of feels like a pinch grip even when I have this hammer style grip, because I am pinching between my index finger and my thumb there, between that finger scallop and the thumb ramp. So, you can really kind of bear down on it. And it feels good in other grips too. If you kind of choke up on the blade here or on the handle, you can use your middle finger in this finger scallop and pinch the blade, or put your finger up on the blade. And because of the curve, you don't feel a lot of pressure in your palm if you are doing those kind of heavier cuts. I cut some cardboard with this, and actually a little bit of wood too, and it felt great in the hand, really, really comfortable. So I was pleasantly surprised by the ergonomics. Typically, I say that a simple handle makes for an ergonomic handle, and this isn't really what I would call a simple handle. It's not as complex as a lot of knife handles are, but it is definitely not as simple as something like an Elementum or even the Serene, which is another aluminum handled button lock from Sencut that I really, really like. So I was pleasantly surprised by the ergonomics. What I wasn't surprised by is the quality of the construction, because Sencut, Civivi, they're related brands, do a really great job of their button locks. So this knife came absolutely drop close smooth, super smooth to open. The detent is really dialed in. I mean, I've talked about that several times in lots of videos on Civivi and Sencut knives. These Sencuts are just as good, in my opinion, with the action as a Civivi button lock might be. So if you're familiar with Civivi, you can expect the same type of action from Sencut. Really nice on the flipper. It also has a thumb stud. Both are very easy to use. You can open it slowly with the thumb stud if that's something you'd prefer to do, but either way, it is just very, very smooth and snappy. I really think that they have the detents dialed in on these button locks. Speaking of the action and the lockup, first of all, came perfectly centered. I didn't need to adjust it or anything. There is no side-to-side play when unlocked, super solid, and then when locked open, no forward and back play at all. So just really have those button locks dialed in. I'll tell you what, I have been not surprised, but continually impressed by Sencut's button locks. And then moving on to the blade, it has this really kind of tall, classic leaf shape type blade that is a really useful practical blade shape. I mean, you get a nice tall grind out of it because it is such a tall blade, but you do, it's not a full flat grind, so you probably get a little bit more strength out of it. But really, Sencut does a great job of grinding their knives for slicing. They cut really, really well. That's another thing that I love about Sencut, Civivi, the whole, the sister brands, is that they do put such nice slicey grinds on these knives. You can see how thin that is behind the edge. Now this has 9CR18 MOV steel, which is, it's not a super steel for sure, but it's a fine steel. I've never had any major issues with it. I think it's going to work well for almost everyone's EDC tasks. So, it's not a super steel by any means, but it's a fine steel. And again, with this nice grind, with the classic, very practical blade shape, I think you've got a really good blade on your hands here. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about is the color of this knife. That's another thing that I really like that they are doing, is all these different colored aluminums. As you can see here, I have the gray Serene, but you know, I've had green knives from Civivi, pink knives. I actually have one, I didn't get it out for this video, but a pink cubit, and they do a bunch of different colors, bright orange, things like that. And I really love that they're doing those different colors. I think that it really adds to the knives, gives you some different options. But one thing I wanted to mention is that this blue is a little different from other blue aluminums that I've seen on Sencut Civivi knives. So to give you a comparison, this is the Civivi Elementum Utility, and it is in blue, but it's a very different blue. I would call this like a royal blue, and this like a, I don't even know, like a, oh, there's a name for it, but it's like a almost grayish blue. It's not gray, it's definitely blue, but it's towards that. It's less vibrant, more kind of restrained, you might say, and I think it's a really good looking blue. It's definitely different. If you want a really bright blue, it is not that in comparison, at least to this, you know, Elementum Utility, but it's definitely a nice looking blue. So I do like that, actually. I like both, but I like that there's a difference. So just another really, really nicely made knife from Sencut. A slightly different design with the downward curved handle, but a very kind of utility oriented knife, I would say. It's a nice size. It's right in line with the size of modern knife that I like. So let me set this out of the way here. Set the Cybrix there, and then I'll show you in comparison to the Serene. So you can see, you know, similar size. The Serene's maybe a little bit longer, but the Cybrix is a little bit taller. And then in comparison to the normal Elementum, not the button lock, not the utility, but the normal Elementum, you can see that the Cybrix is larger. So a little larger than some people, you know, a lot of people seem to lean towards 3 inches for EDC. I lean towards 3.5 inches, and this is right around there. And it's under $50. That's one of the big things with these Sencut knives, is the quality of knife that you get for the price is just something that's hard to match in today's market. You know, I love American-made knives. I mean, I carry American-made knives all the time. You know, this is a Chris Reeves Sabenza, if you're not familiar. And it's American made, has a great warranty, super well made, all of that, high-end materials. But this knife is $500 and this knife is under $50. So, you know, there's a real big difference there. And I don't blame people for, you know, preferring to get something that is more, you know, budget friendly. In fact, I really like carrying and using Sencut knives. I think that they cut really well. They hold an edge perfectly fine for me. They are made super well. So I think you really get a good value on these Sencut knives in particular. They just are really nicely made, and I haven't had a dud, to be honest. So they're really consistent and just nice knives. So if they have one that you like the design, you know, if you got an extra $50, go for it. And this is a new design, like I said, from Sencut in the Cybrix, and I have really enjoyed getting to check it out. They sent it to me for review. So make sure if you buy one, use my discount code. You can find that in the description. And make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.